Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Normally we talk about video games, but I'll make an exception today because Wreck-It Ralph is a series that I consider very much in the video game realm. But we're gonna deviate a little bit from that original premise because now he is breaking the internet rather than other people's games. With me is Crush It Chris.
Why, thank you, Mash It Matthew.
Oh, that's good. Make it, Matthew. I can make it.
Yeah, you can make it.
It sounds almost like Naked Matthew, which I could be naked.
You never know.
So, Ralph Breaks the Internet, sequel to Wreck-It Ralph from back in 2013 or something, 2012, I don't know, is all about the video game protagonists, Ralph and Vanellope, who leave their arcade world and go online in search of a broken part from Vanellope's game. Once in the universe of the internet, they deal with all sorts of challenges stemming from both this brave new world and their own relationship. So Chris, what did you think of the premise of the world of the internet instead of the arcade?
I was worried that it would be crammed with memes and things that didn't really make for substantive humor or character development, and I feel like it kind of fell into that trap in some ways. One thing that and I think you as well, really liked about the first movie was that it was embracing this old school game theme, which, you wouldn't expect for a major release film. It made use of that world without feeling like it was crammed with like sponsored references and like, oh no, we gotta have Sonic and Mario as some main characters because it's a video game movie.
Right.
It really managed to be its own thing. It just happened to be based in the world of video games. Yeah. And it told a compelling story regardless of if you like games or not. So the framework of, existing in arcade games was just a foundation for the story. It didn't really have anything to do with the story in terms of like game characters we know, things like that, which was great. So the fact that they diverted into internet, which is broader than just games, was concerning, and I think it was executed in a way that could have been a little better. What do you think?
I'm gonna try my best not to do too many direct comparisons, but I will say that I feel like it was smart in the original movie how they focused on older games specifically, rather than whatever was currently popular,
Right.
It wasn't like just like a bunch of Call of Duty. I mean, there was the Heroes Duty thing, sure, it was a first-person shooter kind of thing, but for the most part, it was still like, these are modern games, these are old school games, they're all kind of interacting, and it's more about the characters than the actual properties, especially since they were basically all made-up properties. The original properties like Pac-Man and Zangief and stuff, they were kind of like little side jokes and stuff just to give the universe more authenticity.
Right.
With the world of the internet, the way they approached it was done pretty well in terms of like, it's a big city, it looks, all technological and stuff, it kind of looks like you'd expect, but I thought the movie had a few clever parts where like they would show how something works, or they'd have some sort of visualization of like, say, using Google, they get sent off to a URL, they kind of get zipped off. It's not really a joke, it's more of like a kind of a creative envisioning of some of these abstract concepts.
Yeah, and when they showed a few disasters occur, it would then connect that to people in the real world getting kicked offline,
right?
Which was kind of fun.
Yeah. A lot of the first half of the movie, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but a lot of it is driven by the jokes, and I think I agree with you that it relies a little heavily on modern stuff. And when I say modern stuff, when you're dealing with the internet, even modern stuff can be outdated within a few weeks or a month or something,
Right.
When you're talking about memes, they have a very short shelf life. So I think that was kind of disappointing, the way they handled some of these plot elements. And one thing that kind of bothered me in general about this premise was that I didn't feel like the world's rules were really in place all that well. For instance, a big plot point in the movie is Ralph making viral internet videos to get money. I didn't understand how this really worked with him as a character. Like, he's a video game character, right? His only interactions with people have been in that 8-bit form. They never see him, like, as a CG character. So when he's, like, baking pies and stuff, like, Are they seeing this big cartoon guy walking around? Like, what are they looking at? It doesn't really make sense to me, like, how they could have a character in the internet making videos. That didn't quite click. I felt a little like they just wanted to have that plot point in. But it just was like, I'm not really buying this.
Yeah, that's true for a number of the scenes, especially in the first half of the movie, that really felt to me like they had, their whole team just making, okay, we're thinking about doing a sequel, like make a bunch of funny shorts with Ralph. And then the movie seemed to tie a bunch of them together loosely. But for instance, you had the scene with eBay, the scene with the know-it-all guy, the scene with
the the videos.
Yeah, like the videos, like all of these things didn't always really connect to a furtherance of some sort of character development or the plot itself.
It was kind of skit-based.
It would only be loosely related to what's going on. It's more like a vignette of these characters, exploring the internet. And that was one of my chief complaints of the first half of the film, really, was a lot of these things they were just trying to put in some gags and be a little fun, but it didn't tie in closely enough to the main themes and character moments that came up later in the movie.
Yeah, I think I'd agree there too. All that said, I feel like the movie could have been a lot more obnoxious. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, considering the premise and just how many cheap shots they could have made, by and large, I was like, I'm okay with most of this.
While we're still being pretty broad, I would say I thought the animation was beautiful. I really did like the way the movie looked. Just the way that the characters were designed and the way that they moved was really nice to look at. I did feel there was a few too many corporate logos, and they involved eBay a little too much into the actual story. Like having a gag here, there, like, the Twitter birds that are like tweeting these little things. Okay, fine, for like one shot. But to have a significant part of the story be about eBay and this is a little much.
For some reason, it bothered me more here than in the first movie. And I know the first movie also mixed like the fictional game characters with real game characters, and I know it's kind of a fine line between having it authentic with real world brands and having too much of the real world brands in there to, I don't know, to where it feels like they're saying the word eBay a lot, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, they could have just said Ubay or Upay or something, make something up that people know.
They had BuzzTube, which was basically YouTube, right?
Right. Interestingly, in the first shot before we see BuzzTube, I think, there is a shot of the YouTube logo.
So they both exist.
The YouTube logo's still in there. Huh. Yeah, they both exist, apparently. The way it's presented, though, you almost expect, this BuzzTube is basically this YouTube. It's just they're not using the YouTube logo, but the YouTube logo's still in there, so...
You see, I didn't think any of this stuff in the first movie. I was...
Right.
That's kind of what I mean by the rules are a little shaky. It doesn't feel quite as well structured in terms of the world building.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to the plot line and see if that fared any better. I'd said this feels kind of like more of a comedy to me, like a buddy comedy, because of like those vignettes you were sort of talking about. It doesn't really get going for the main themes until maybe the second half of the movie.
Yeah.
It starts exploring more the relationship between Ralph and Vanellope. I feel like in general, the seeds of the core theme should have been interspersed more frequently throughout the movie.
Yeah.
We were kind of just doing our own thing for a while, and if you didn't really like the gags of the first half, there wasn't a whole lot to cling on to. They don't really set up very much stuff. They have a little bit of Ralph being kind of needy in a few sequences, but for the most part, it's just a couple kooks running around being goofy on the internet.
That was my vibe too, that in the first half of the movie, Vanellope and Ralph are pretty much a solid team. I mean, they complement each other in like the way they interact, so you don't really get any vibe that there's much off there. They mentioned very early on that Ralph's happy with things being the same all the time. He just likes, doing his thing in the arcade. But Vanellope's a little bit dissatisfied. She's kind of wants something different. But then they illustrate that, Ralph sees that she wants something different, so he goes and makes, a new track for her, and then she's really happy. So, like, everything we see about them for the first half of the movie is, okay, they're working toward the same goals, they're good friends. We don't really see much in terms of conflict that is later brought up more significantly, which it was weird to me.
I really feel like the viral marketing part of the movie took up too much time.
Yeah.
That's the part I feel is the weakest part, because it didn't really work for me humor-wise. It felt kind of dumb, and it got me questioning, like, how does this world even work? And it didn't really do anything for the story, because it was basically, like, to get the MacGuffin, which was not really, like, the main goal of the characters either. Kind of like a red herring thing, which is fine. But to spend so much time on the red herring, it seemed like a mistake to me. I think they should have spent that time a little better at either better developing the world or setting up the third act.
So, like, the middle conflict is kind of just a stepping stone between them, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think in Wreck-It Ralph, the point of the medal was to show that it wasn't actually what he needed. They kind of hammer this home when Vanellope gives him that homemade medal that says, "You're my hero,"
Right.
And he realizes, oh, okay, this relationship with this kid, like helping this person out, this is really more fulfilling than just kind of this hero medal, which doesn't really have any sort of significance. So I think they were going for that again with the wheel. Like, the wheel was the goal, but it wasn't what she needed to be happy.
Right.
Let's talk about the characters, because they're directly related to the main plotline of the movie. Let's start with Ralph and Vanellope. Okay, so this is where we kind of get into spoiler territory. The last third of the movie showcases Ralph as getting too needy and too too much of an unhealthy relationship with Vanellope to where he's kind of codependent on her, and doing what he thinks is best for her, he ends up making some stupid decisions and bringing basically ruin. He's wrecking the internet basically as a result, unintentionally for the most part. So that's what the last act relies on, is Ralph's insecurity manifested into the villain of the movie. In a way, there's kind of a parallel. Like in the first movie, he was the bad guy, he wanted to be the good guy. This movie, he's the good guy, but he turns out to kind of be the bad guy, which is sort of cool. Chris, how do you think this general plotline was handled?
I thought it had some good ideas. I don't feel that these themes were woven well enough into the whole movie. I felt like around the middle of the movie, there is a musical number that is pretty effective, I thought. It looks really nice, and it's all about Vanellope realizing that what she really wants is to go to this new game, the Slaughter Race game, because she really feels like, oh, I'd really be happy there. It's got all the things I want. At the very beginning of the movie, there's a couple of lines where she's like, things are kind of boring, whatever. But then they don't really address that again until that scene where she's like, oh, you know what I really want is to go to this other game because Sugar Race is boring and this would have everything I want to make me happy. And there's a big gulf in between there. Like there's a couple of moments where her and Ralph disagree about something, but it's not about what she wants. They're looking for this item, which is a car in another game to steal to make money to buy the part. So they go into this game called Slaughter Race, and they are track down the item, which is, a nice car, and they're gonna try to steal it. So they meet this new character called, I want to keep on calling her Slade, Shank, called Shank.
Slade.
It's called Shank, and Vanellope becomes very enamored and impressed with Shank. She's like, wow, this Shank is so cool, she's such a good driver, and she keeps talking about that in a few different moments.
Yeah.
So what I came away with the feeling of that is, okay, she really likes Shank. She looks up to Shank. Shank's like another racer just like her, and she seems really cool. Sure, fine. But then when they bring out the Slaughter Race in the musical number, it's all about how she wants to be in Slaughter Race because of all these other reasons, which seemed like a wasted opportunity to me. So instead of illustrating that she's like, wow, I can do anything here, this world really speaks to me, they focused it on this one character instead, which isn't the same thing. Rather than having any inkling that she's wanting to stay in this world rather than go back to Sugar Rush, we get this sense that, well, she's just looking up to this character, which makes sense.
Yeah, Ralph and Vanellope, they each have their own kind of arc in this movie. Vanellope's didn't quite click with me. For kind of some of the reasons you said, it wasn't really clear to me why she liked Slaughter Race so much more than Sugar Rush.
Yeah.
Like in the first movie, she really wanted to be a racer. She loved racing in Sugar Rush. And in this movie, all we get is she's grown tired of like the lack of content in the game, was what I got. Like there's 3 tracks. But like, who's to say she wouldn't get bored with Slaughter Race after she plays it for 6 years,
Yeah.
Like, it didn't seem different enough from Sugar Rush for her to, I mean, I know thematically it's like crazier, and grittier, but I mean, it didn't seem like that much of a difference. It just seemed like another game, more content. That never quite clicked with me, like why she was so intent on leaving Sugar Rush. It also bothered me that she's basically gone turbo, which is a bad thing in the first movie. And she's like, they still have 15 other racers. And I mean, it's like, yeah, but she was on the side of the arcade machine. She was super popular because of her glitching powers. Yeah. I mean, right in the beginning of the game, they're like, pick Vanellope. She's the best one, right?
Right.
Like the kids love playing as Vanellope. So it's weird that she just abandons the arcade machine with no repercussions. And Ralph does the same thing for a day, with Wreck-It Ralph and Fix It Felix basically says, I'll cover for you.
What does that mean?
How was he gonna do that? They certainly had trouble with that in the first movie.
Yeah.
So that was questionable to me. So I kind of get what they were going for with her wanting something more. And I liked how they kind of tie it to like your friends are leaving. Sometimes friends grow apart.
Yeah.
Because of external forces, which is good. I mean, it's not a bad theme. It's relatable. I just feel like they didn't really solidify her motivations sufficiently enough.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So the idea behind Ralph was that he was very clingy. He was really invested in having Vanellope as a friend, always being around her, always doing things with her. And then later in the movie, he gets hurt when he finds out that she wants to change. She wants to go somewhere else. She doesn't necessarily want to be with him all the time. So he overreacts and does a couple things that create a lot of problems. So I think it's relatable that it's a process to learn to let go of a relationship, or at least allow a relationship to change. You can still be friends with someone, but that relationship might change. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, but I felt like there wasn't enough there leading up to that, and then when the developments occurred, they left a little bit to be desired in terms of justifying why the characters took those actions exactly.
So Ralph's arc in this movie, I understand it from like a character perspective. Like I get that he's always been alone, and now he's suddenly got a friend at the end of Wreck-It Ralph, and they've been close for several years, but he doesn't really have any other friends, and so he gets too clingy. I mean that makes sense to me, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't really like him as much like this. He feels like he's regressed, and he's kind of dopey, and he's just a little... I don't know. I liked him more as a character in the first movie. I thought he's kind of like the curmudgeon with the heart of gold, He's a little standoffish to Vanellope, but he kind of warms up to her. But they never get like super chummy. And I'm glad that he's got this connection to her, But I feel like he's a more compelling character in the first movie. He feels like you kind of want to shake him a couple times in this movie when he's going down the wrong path, to get the virus. When he's being just a little too needy. I'm not saying you can't have character flaws. I enjoyed him more as a character in the original.
The thing is, for half the movie, I didn't feel he had those flaws. Like there's a couple moments in the very beginning where he's like, "Oh, we're not gonna hang out, okay." But for the next 40 minutes or something, there's nothing. They're a great team. They're having fun. They're on this mission. Then it seemed to come out of left field to me when he hears of her wanting to leave the game and go to the new game. He freaks out and he's just like, "Oh, she's got to be brainwashed. I gotta go get a virus to put in the game." Like, whoa, buddy. That just seems really out of character for him to me.
You felt that action was too extreme, too fast.
Yeah.
Like a big jump. Okay.
Maybe that makes him very concerned, and he goes try to talk to her, and then something else happens that makes him think, "Oh, she's in trouble. I have to do something extreme to save her." Maybe that would have worked a little better.
I guess the catalyst that you're referring to would basically be when he called her and he was on mute, and she's talking to Shank.
Yeah, I felt a number of the plot points were a little overly convenient like that.
I'm okay with coincidences when they result in things going wrong for the characters.
Sure, but there was a lot of coincidences. Like every major plot point was a coincidence.
Let's talk about the other characters real quick.
All right.
So kind of a big negative for me was, where's Fix-It Felix?
I know. What?
I love my Fix-It Felix man. He was my favorite in the original, and he just really bookends this movie. He's got maybe 10 lines.
Yeah, but I think they had a cute little subplot with him. But you're right, he was definitely a very minor character.
So instead of Felix and Calhoun and King Candy, we have Yes, who is the sort of viral embodiment of YouTube. We have Knowsmore, who's kind of I guess, the embodiment of Google, basically. And Spamly, who is the embodiment of clickable ads. Oh, I forgot Shank. There's also Shank.
Shank I didn't like as much. I thought her voice acting wasn't as good, and her character just wasn't as interesting. She was like very one-dimensional. They when they're talking about getting this car, it sounds like it's gonna be dangerous and scary, but she's never really presented as dangerous and scary. She's just kind of a cool supermodel, like, "Hey man, what's up?" Like there's no danger there.
She kind of reminds me of Calhoun, but without like the flaws of Calhoun going too far all the time and being mean.
Yeah.
So she didn't leave too much of an impression on me. I'll tell you what bothered me about Yes.
What's that?
We're introduced to her, and she's like flipping through stuff, and there's like Chewbacca Dad or something. It's like apparently based off some other YouTube thing, right? Like right when you're introduced to her, she's like, you can't just copy what other people are doing, And so it's like, okay, so this is like kind of a person that's looking for like quality content. But then like not 3 minutes later, she's like, well, how are you gonna make more viral videos? And Ralph's like, I'm just gonna copy what everyone else is doing. She's like, brilliant. And I'm thinking, well, what am I supposed to get from this character? Like she just directly contradicted a major part of her personality in like the first 3 minutes. I don't know what to make of her.
That's a good point.
So that was kind of my issue with her.
Yeah, I guess I liked the way she was animated, and I thought her voice acting was pretty fun, but...
I like the different costumes, every time you see her, she's in a different outfit.
Yeah, as a character, I liked Spamly better. He was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, I liked him too. I thought he had kind of a fun, like, old school design.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he was kind of shady, but he wasn't like a horrible person,
Yeah.
Like, he ends up trying to save Ralph at the end and everything. So, it's kind of fun. And his weird little buddy that he would just, like, shout for and just appear. It's kind of a fun little weird gag,
Yeah.
So, princesses.
Ugh.
The princess thing. This is kind of a much ballyhooed part of the movie because they showed a lot of it in the trailers for starters.
Yeah.
So generally, I'm gonna admit, I thought these were actually pretty well written. I liked the references. I thought they were funny. I thought it tied into Vanellope's quest reasonably well. They link it into an actual Alan Menken original song. which I was like, okay, they're going through with this. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, my issue is it's kind of shoehorned in. If you really look at it objectively, it's like, why is she meeting the princesses?
Yeah.
She's on the internet. I mean, everything's on the internet,
Yeah.
right? It's not like the premise is they're jumping around from movie to movie like Beautiful Joe. They're on the internet.
Right.
So they go to a Disney fan site and run into a bunch of Disney characters. It's kind of like, it's like they really wanted to put these characters in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's hard to justify it.
I thought it was too much. There were a couple of fun lines. I did particularly like when they complimented her clothes, and then they all got these comfortable clothes. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. There's a bunch of little gags in those clothes too.
Yeah, but overall, I thought it was like Disney just patting themselves on the back. They're not gonna make a joke that's gonna put anything down, and that kind of made it feel too safe to me.
Well, they took a couple.
With kid gloves.
You know, they're brave. I was worried about that prior to the movie, but they didn't spend as much time on it as I had feared.
Oh yeah, it could have been worse for sure.
Like when they had the big pan over the Disney, all the Disney properties going on, I was kind of bracing myself for like, just, this is gonna be too much. But I mean,
it wasn't terrible, but
made me laugh a few times. I like the detail in the music, for instance.
Oh yeah,
Like when they're rescuing Ralph at the end. Like every time a princess is doing something, you hear like a little motif of her theme song, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's kind of fun. It's sort of out of place in this movie because this doesn't feel like a crossover movie.
Right.
It feels like Ralph and Vanellope on the internet for 90% of the movie, and then like 10% of like crazy Disney crossover.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really have much of a place in the movie.
If it was more of a crossover movie, I would have been happier with that. Like if it's like a Roger Rabbit or something where you got all these characters all crossing over, that could have been fun. But since it wasn't that, it made it feel more shoehorned, more out of place.
You know, I think they were trying to do like the Bad Anon thing from the first movie, but with you know a different spin on that. And with Bad Anon, you had established villains, but the difference is all these characters are directly associated with video games in the arcade. The princesses, I mean, they're not really that associated with the internet. I mean, the internet is very broad, you know?
They just happen to be there.
They happen to be there. It's a Disney fan site.
I did like the ending. I thought that it was nice that the villain was really Ralph's insecurity, and that what they did to defeat the villain wasn't punch it. It was to come to an understanding of how they both feel. I thought that was nice.
It was a little on the nose for me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me.
I might agree with that, but then the fact that the movie was so not on the nose for the first half of the movie, like I appreciated it when it actually came out and started saying, oh, this is what these characters feel, because there was nothing of that in the first half. In the first half of the movie, I'm just like, okay, this is just a bunch of silly stuff happening. What's gonna actually move the plot forward? What's actually gonna, give us something to latch onto in terms of the character development or anything? And there was very little until the musical number in the middle, really.
Overall, how did you like Wreck-It Ralph? Ralph Breaks the Internet.
It was okay. Wasn't bad. I think they had a couple good ideas, and I wish they had woven them a little more tightly through the whole movie. Well, what about you?
I thought I liked it fine. It was kind of a disappointment. I love the original Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
So I can't help but kind of compare it. I know, they should kind of stand on their own merits, but I just think of it, like, I rewatched Wreck-It Ralph the other day, and I completely loved it. Like, the things that are set up throughout the entire movie all have some sort of payoff. I will say that the emotional moments of Ralph Breaks the Internet kind of got to me. Like, they were effective.
Yeah.
And, I got some laughs from it. I like seeing these characters again. So, I mean, kind of a C plus B minus to me. On my fantastic letter scale.
All right.
But yeah, so that's our wrap up on Wreck-It Ralph Breaks Ralph Wrecked. They should have called it Ralph Wrecked the Internet. Wait. Ralph broke the internet. Wait. It should have been in past tense, because then when it happened, a character could turn to the camera and they could be like, Ralph broke the internet, and everyone would be like, oh, there's the title. Don't you love when movies do that? When they say the title? It's like in the end of Brawl in the Family, when I said, it's time for a brawl in the family. What, you don't remember that? Maybe I deleted it.Maybe you forced me to get rid of that line. Let us know what you think of Ralph Breaks the Internet in the comments below. And stay tuned for more talk about Smash Brothers.
And if you want to see me talk about this movie more, I think we'll link an episode of Movie Stubs here.
Oh yeah. Chris is now working on his own podcast with actual video.
Yes.
So if he is naked, you can see him in this podcast. It's called Movie Stubs, and he and a buddy review movies. And don't worry, it's not me. You won't get my obnoxious commentary about movies. It's actually a couple of guys that know a little more about movies than I do. So click here to go see them talk about a variety of films that have come out recently, including Ralph Breaks the Internet. And where are some other ones, Chris?
Before Ralph, we did Fantastic Beasts 2.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
If you're a little child, this is a little bit more PG fare than The Brawl in the Family, but I think y'all can handle it.
I still bleep out the curses, or most of them anyway, so.
Oh man.
Yeah.
he catches most of them. Yeah, so check it out. They have a lot of good commentary, and I've been enjoying watching them.
Oh, well,
so, yeah. All right, thanks guys. Catch you next time.
Later.